Hello everyone, welcome to WORDCORE. Are you ready to talk all things words? My name is Carolina and today we'll explore the word facade. We'll take a look at it from the perspective of art, fashion, history, and more. Stay tuned and let's learn some new things together. So I'm very excited to finally be recording the first episode of WORDCORE. Today's word of the episode is facade. According to Oxford Dictionary, facade is the external face or elevation of a building, especially the principal front. What surprised me when researching the word was its spelling. So it's actually spelled with the French C cedilla. Cedilla is a mark placed under a letter to indicate an alteration or modification of its usual phonetic value. Since the word comes from French, I think it's only right for me to give you the French examples. Now, I don't speak French, so pardon my French. Oh my God. So, okay, I'm going to give you an example of C cedilla and how the cedilla changes the sound and the pronunciation of the letter. You can see the cedilla in action, for example, in the phrase ça va, which is how is it going, I think. Ça va is also spelled with the C in the beginning, but it's the C cedilla. So it's pronounced ça va. And croissant, spelled with the C in the beginning, is pronounced k, croissant. So anyway, yeah, that's the cedilla. I never knew that existed, and it was really nice to find out that the diacritical mark like this exists. So now you know. C cedilla. In the word facade, that's how we spell it. Okay, let's move away from the linguistics part and move on to the origins of the word facade. The word originates from French and dates back to mid-17th century, which was the baroque era. The art in baroque era was very irregular and bizarre. It was rich, theatrical. There was a lot of dynamic and movement in the paintings and in sculptures. It was very dramatic. And speaking of art in baroque era, one of the most prominent artists was the Flemish painter Peter Paul Rubens. Now, I don't remember a lot from school, which is partially the reason I'm making this podcast, but I do remember learning about him and the Rubenesque women. Speaking of Rubenesque women, I want to quickly talk about a painting of his I found yesterday when researching for the episode. The painting is called Portrait of a Young Woman with a Rosary, and it's absolutely beautiful. Go look it up right now. I'm also going to post it on WORDCORE Podcast Instagram account, so you can find it there as well. Okay, let me attempt to describe the image to you if you can't look it up right now. So the woman is sitting in front of this dark red shiny material. It kind of looks like crushed velvet because of how it's reflecting the light. You can see this beautiful detailing on it on the bottom left side where the light is hitting. The woman is richly dressed. She has this very big collar around her neck. It's this dark gray color. It has multiple layers in dark gray lace, and you can see so many details on it as well. And then the woman is also wearing an armor, metal armor, which has a lot of details on it as well. You can see some chains and it reflects the light so beautifully. It really looks so real. And she's obviously holding the rosary in her right hand, but you can't really see the rosary as much. It's kind of hidden in the palm of her hand. If I didn't know the title of this painting, I probably wouldn't have even noticed the rosary in her hand. But nonetheless, the painting is so beautiful, especially in the way it reflects the light, but also her face looks so real. So whenever you get the chance, take a look at the image and tell me it doesn't look amazing. Architectural Digest described Baroque by saying that artists pumped drama and tension into their works, and architects designed monumental religious buildings rich in detail. Which makes me think that school did, after all, teach me something. Not that I'm talking badly about school, I just didn't study when I was in school. I was too lazy. When I think of the word facade, my association with the word is these grand, monumental, very rich looking buildings with columns, sculptures, details, bas reliefs, and probably some Roman numerals at the top. So I guess I did learn something. It really is impossible not to mention Rome when talking about Baroque, because Rome really was the epicenter of the Baroque movement. Which brings me to the pearl of today's episode, the Trevi Fountain. Pearl, girl with the pearl earring, Vermeer, Baroque, it's all connected. Now, the Trevi Fountain. First of all, it's magnificent. I just saw it a few weeks ago and I'm so glad I could finally see it because I went to Rome, I think when I was 15, and I only went there for a day. And the Trevi Fountain was in construction, so I didn't get to see it. So now that I was in Rome a few weeks ago, I saw it for the first time and just stared at it for a few minutes because it is incredible. The Trevi Fountain was originally designed by Gian Lorenzo Bernini, but it was finished in the 18th century, exactly in 1762, by Nicola Salvi. So typically for the Baroque movement, the Trevi Fountain consists of many sculptures that are caught in these dynamic poses. There's tritons, there's horses, and it really looks like as if they were about to move because the poses are so dynamic. They really are frozen in stone in their movement, really. And also the placement of the fountain is so unique because it is at the back of the Palazzo Poli building, and it just kind of looks like the building is collapsing into this fountain. So there's obviously all these beautiful marble sculptures, but there's also a bunch of just like raw rocks, so it looks like it's collapsing into these beautiful sculptures, beautifully made, very detailed. And then at the bottom, there's just a bunch of like raw rocks. And then there's the water. It's absolutely beautiful. It looks amazing in sunlight and it's breathtaking. Like you should just go there and stand and look for as long as you want to. I know there's a million of people, but it's worth it. And I mean, you can take your time. Right, now that we're in Rome, looking at the beautiful Trevi Fountain, I'm going to tell you about the Fendi fashion show that took place on the Trevi Fountain in 2016. It was a show in celebration of 90 years of Fendi, and it was by Karl Lagerfeld and Silvia Venturini. The show took place after dark, so the fountain was just beautifully lit up. I wasn't there. I saw the show on YouTube, by the way. But the fountain was beautifully lit up. The marble sculptures were shining. The water was very clear, bright, also almost shining, like very turquoise. Incredible. The models were walking on the Trevi Fountain. Like, I still can't quite comprehend the honor it would be to walk on the Trevi Fountain. The runway was made of this transparent plexiglass and they were walking on top of it wearing haute couture Fendi designs. Imagine falling in the fountain wearing haute couture Fendi designs. Very stressful. The music was very constant, but honestly, when I was watching the show, it almost felt like suspenseful. Like it made me even more anxious for the models walking the runway. Honestly, I'm so jealous for the people who got to attend the show because, like I said, the Trevi Fountain is always full of tourists. Everyone's out there with their phones, understandably so. It's incredibly beautiful, but to have the opportunity to be there when the Trevi Fountain is so isolated, there's only the models, probably press, but also the people watching, like that is incredible. And to walk on the Trevi Fountain as a model is just so incredibly unique. I'm sure it's probably one of the most unique fashion show venues of all time. And also to be this close to the fountain, like it's just such an amazing experience, I'm sure, because right now there's fences all around it. You can't really get that close. I saw pictures from a few years ago, and like I saw people sitting on a fountain like right next to the raw marble rocks. You can't get that close anymore. So yeah, to be this close to the fountain and to see it so isolated must have been an extraordinary moment to all the people who got to attend. The collection was inspired by a Danish illustrator, K. Nielsen, and his work from the early 20th century on a children's book called East of the Sun and West of the Moon. So in his illustrations for the book, there was a lot of pastels, fauna, flora, very princessy-like gowns, and all of it translates to the runway. We can see really these outstanding gowns, but not only, a lot of embroidery, a lot of shiny elements, a lot of transparency actually. There were a lot of looks that made me just pause the show and look at them in detail. Some of them were look 15, 19, 32, but two looks I want to talk about in detail are look 24, which was this, I'm not even sure if it's a dress or a skirt, but I want to talk about the bottom part of the look particularly because there was this beautiful black super transparent skirt. It had this black piping around it, and in the middle, in the back, in the front, there was this black embroidered flower, which was just absolutely beautiful. And the model wore it with these very short black shorts underneath, which is trendy right now to wear the very short shorts and tights underneath. So if you're into that trend, go look up the look number 24 from that show. I'm also going to post it on my Instagram, and you might get inspired because you're still getting the very short shorts, but you're also getting the transparency. So if you can get your hands on a skirt similar to this, I think that's an incredible way to elevate this trend. And my other favorite look from this fashion show is look number 42, and it's this white crochet or net dress with no sleeves. So it has this beautiful ecru details all over the dress. I think they are made of fur, so they are kind of like 3D. Of course, fur is not great at all, but it does look beautiful. The dress also has very high slits on both sides, and there's this ecru tulle material coming out of the slits, so it just creates more volume, and it's not as revealing as it would be if there was no extra material in the slits. And the dress also has this very wide belt in the waistline, which is also made of the same crochet or net material that the rest of the dress, but it just, emphasizes the waist, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Obviously. And it's just such a subtle detail that you really don't pay much attention to when you just look at the, whole silhouette, but it definitely elevates the look and kind of brings it together while adding another layer to it. You can see all the looks in detail on Vogue Runway, but I'll also be posting the ones I talked about on my Instagram. Right, the finale of the show is absolutely magnificent. All models are standing still next to each other in an arched line. They're standing very still, looking into the crowd, and they're wearing these incredible garments. It looks very magical. It almost looks like as if they were an extension of the Trevi Fountain, a double facade of the building. There's the beautiful marble statues behind them, and then there's this line of models who just look so beautiful in these garments that are very rich in detail. And as the camera zooms on the models, you can see their hair gently moved by the wind, and you can almost feel this light wind on your skin. It's absolutely beautiful. As the models are walking off the runway, you can hear L'arcobaleno per Giulietta by Nino Rota playing in the background, and it's this beautiful, very fairy tale-like music from back in the day. The music really brings me back to these old cartoons I used to watch about princesses. It's a beautiful melody. Look it up and listen to it. It's very nostalgic to me, and it really makes me think of these fairy tales, which is really the inspiration behind the show. So I really love how this melody closes the whole event and accompanies the models as they walk off the runway. Speaking of models, you know how they always need to put on a new, different face for each job? I think a great metaphor for this would be our word of the episode, facade. The second definition of the word is a deceptive outward appearance. Now, this definition, in my point of view, is a rather negative one. It implies a certain fakeness, which is actually contradicting to its original definition, being something grand and beautiful and majestic and not something fake. This leads me to closing this episode. I'd like to end it with a poem I wrote a few months ago before I even had the idea for the concept of the podcast, let alone this episode in particular. I've just now realized that the poem includes the keyword of the first episode of WORDCORE, which is facade. The poem talks about the final goodbye, a disappointment and sadness that comes with a heartbreak, which is sad, but it's real, and I think a lot of us go through emotions like this, so I hope at least some of you can relate to this poem. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you in my next episode. And here's the untitled poem. Our final goodbye was bitter, but you must admit we tried our best to make it sweet. My heavy tears on your nude chest, like colorful sprinkles on a soft cake. Your kisses on my wet cheeks, my fragile hands on your firm body. But it was just a shell. A hard shell, a facade, a fort, protecting the soft inside you never shared with me.